Marcus Johnson, a 15-year-old black teenager, stood motionless as police officers fastened cuffs around his wrists. Blood dripped from his knuckles, while 3 white teens groaned on the concrete near the pool. The country club manager jabbed a finger at Marcus, yelling about violent thugs. Cameras flashed from nearby phones, but no one noticed the faint grin on Marcus's face as he glanced up toward the security camera above the pool entrance. Before we unpack this explosive story, let us know where you're watching from, like, and subscribe for more real stories where truth and justice push back against injustice. What would you do in Marcus's shoes? Accused before a single question's asked. The Johnsons had only lived in Oak Ridge for 3 months, yet it already felt like 3 months too long. Marcus sat at the kitchen island, spinning his empty cereal bowl while his mother, Diana, scrambled through documents in her hospital scrubs before her shift at Oak Ridge Memorial. Despite being one of the few black neurosurgeons in the state, she still dealt with patients who questioned her title, assuming she was a nurse or tech. His father, James, moved with silent efficiency in the background, blending their morning protein shakes. A former special ops soldier, he now ran Asmal martial arts dojo in town, focused on Jeet Kune Do, the adaptive fighting philosophy pioneered by Bruce Lee. They'd left Chicago fast after an incident at Marcus's last school spiraled from racial slurs into physical threats. Oak Ridge, with its pristine lawns and luxury vehicles, was supposed to offer safety and opportunity. But in truth, it was worse. Racism here came dressed in smiles. It was the way store security trailed them, the sudden busyness of neighbors at block parties, and the surprised tone when people learned Diana was a surgeon or that James had served in elite combat missions. Marcus buried himself in training at his father's dojo, drawn to the calm and discipline it offered. At just 15, his skill was advanced, combination of raw athleticism and uncanny instinct. James often said Marcus had surpassed most adult students in a few short years. But school was a different battleground. Oak Ridge High was overwhelmingly white, full of legacy families with deep local ties. Marcus kept a low profile, doing well in class but rarely connecting with peers who saw him as other. That's why the invitation surprised him. "You should come to my birthday party this Saturday," Aiden Harrison said offhandedly after they were paired in AP Biology. Aiden was part of the popular crowd. His father, Connor Harrison, was a top real estate developer. "It's at my dad's country club. We've got the pool area all to ourselves." Marcus hesitated, stunned. Oak Ridge Country Club was famously exclusive, with whispers of years-long waitlists, unless you had the right connections or skin tone. "You sure I'm invited?" he asked cautiously. Aiden looked puzzled. "Yeah, man, you're cool. Most people here are so dull." That night at dinner, Marcus brought it up. His parents exchanged a look he'd seen too many times before. "The Harrisons," Diana said slowly. "Connor sits on the hospital board. He's complex. James Lord Fork. Son, we trust your judgment. But places like that can be ... He paused, searching. ... Unpredictable for people like us." Marcus picked at his food. "Aiden seems different. Not like the others." Diana reached over, squeezing his hand. "I know you want friends, baby. Just stay alert. Don't forget Chicago." That memory resurfaced. White classmates, cornering him in the locker room. Slurs, shoving him, defending himself, yet somehow becoming the aggressor. Only his parents' advocacy and a teacher's testimony had spared him expulsion, but it had been enough to force the move. "I'll be careful," he promised. "I'll keep my phone on. I'll call at the first sign of trouble." James nodded slowly. "Remember what I taught you. Awareness first. De-escalate when you can. Only act if you must, and only as much as needed." "I know, Dad." James leaned forward. "Skill comes with responsibility, Marcus. Strength must be tempered with control." Later that night, while practicing strikes in the basement, Marcus replayed the whole exchange. Maybe this party was his shot at fitting in. Maybe Aiden really wasn't like the rest. Still, as he executed a flawless combination against the heavy bag, something in his gut tensed. His father's words rang in his ears. The most dangerous moments often come wrapped in normalcy. Marcus would go, but he'd stay vigilant. He had no way of knowing how much this single choice would ripple through his life and through Oak Ridge itself. Saturday arrived with clear skies and blazing sunlight bouncing off the Olympic-sized pool at Oak Ridge Country Club. Marcus approached the towering entrance. Noting the manicured landscape and the intimidating air of wealth, 2 security guards flanked the gate, their eyes narrowing as he got closer. Despite his carefully selected khaki shorts and button-down outfit his mother had chosen, he felt immediately out of place. "Membership card?" one of the guards asked, stepping in front of him. "I'm here for Aiden Harrison's birthday," Marcus replied calmly, using the polite tone his parents drilled into him. The guard raised an eyebrow and glanced at his partner. "Name, Marcus Johnson." The guard's radio hissed to life as he called it in, his suspicion obvious. Marcus stood still, keeping his face neutral while frustration simmered beneath the surface. He'd been here before. Then came a tall man with graying hair and a club logo polo shirt, striding toward them. Marcus recognized him, Connor Harrison, Aiden's father. "Ah, Marcus," he said, smiling just enough. "Aiden said he invited a lab partner. Come along." As they walked through the grand lobby, Connor made small talk. "New to Oak Ridge?" "Yes." "I hear your mother's at the hospital. Quite the achievement." The tone on your mother wasn't lost on Marcus. "And your father runs a gym, I believe." "He teaches martial arts," Marcus replied evenly. "He served in special forces." "Interesting," Connor muttered, not even pretending to care. "You're very well spoken, Marcus. Quite articulate." Marcus had heard that one before. Too many times. By the time they reached the pool, he was already questioning his decision. Teens crowded the deck, most familiar from school. Aiden spotted him and waved, though Marcus caught the brief pause in his smile. "Glad you came," Aiden said, weaving him through the party and tossing out introductions. Most kids gave Marcus a nod, then turned away. Only one girl, an Asian American classmate named Zoe Chin, seemed warm. "You're in my AP physics class, right?" she said. "Your answer to Dr. Johnson's unsolvable problem last week was genius." Marcus smiled, but the moment was cut short. The mood around them shifted. A group of older boys paused their pool antics to watch him. One of them, a tall, muscular swimmer, stepped out, water dripping as he locked eyes with Marcus. "So this is your little project, huh, cousin?" he sneered at Aiden Blake. Aiden muttered, clearly uneasy. "This is Marcus. He's chill." Blake Wilson, captain of the swim team, and Aiden's cousin, looked Marcus over like something unpleasant. Flanked by Tyler Matthews and Caleb Porter, he sauntered closer. "Right? The new kid who thinks he's hot stuff." Marcus held out a hand. "Nice to meet you." Blake ignored it, turning to his friends. "Remember last week in gym? Coach had us run that obstacle course. This guy here broke the school record. Guess he thinks he's better than us." Marcus hadn't been showing off. He'd just used what he'd trained for. But now, he understood. Blake's bruised ego was fueling his hatred. The kind of pride that lashes out when challenged. Marcus's eyes scanned the area on automatic. Habit now. He took in the pool's layout. Large swimming lanes, a diving pool, a shallow end, few adults. Most parents were inside the clubhouse. Cameras dotted the perimeter, but there were gaps. A lone Latino pool attendant stacked gear nearby. Then came Mr. Harrison's voice. "Aiden, gather your friends. Cake time." As the teens headed inside, Marcus saw Blake and his crew hang back, eyes burning holes into him. Zoe lingered, her face worried. "Blake's a jerk. Just ignore him." But Marcus wasn't fooled. He recognized the tension in the air. This wasn't harmless teasing. It was targeted, deliberate, and dangerous. As he followed the others inside, he felt Blake's gaze fixed on him like crosshairs. This party had just taken a dark turn. He'd seen this pattern before. Predators, waiting for an opportunity. What they didn't know, Marcus wasn't prey. Not today. Not ever. What started as a forced attempt at normalcy quickly turned hostile. After cake and presents, the teens returned to the pool. Marcus made an effort to blend in, chatting politely, joining a water volleyball game, keeping things light. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. Blake's accidental splash to the face, Tyler's loud jab about some people not belonging, Caleb's snickering every time Marcus spoke. Then came the cruel whisper, "Does chlorine even work on their kind of hair?" Marcus said nothing, focused on breath, not emotion, just like his dad taught him. Aiden kept looking Marcus's way, clearly aware, but unwilling to intervene. Eventually, Marcus sent a quiet text to his parents. "Uncomfortable here, might leave early." As he waited, Blake and his friends closed in. "So your dad teaches fake kung fu?" Blake sneered. "Jeet Kune Do," Marcus replied evenly. Blake leaned in, voice dripping with contempt. "Bet you can't even swim." "Heard, it's a density thing." Zoe Chin stepped in. "That's racist, and Marcus was just swimming fine." Blake turned on her, snapping, "No one asked you, Chin." She flinched, but didn't back down. Marcus's phone buzzed. "Trust your instincts. Leave if needed." He stood. "Thanks for the invite, but I'm heading out." As he tried to pass, Blake blocked him. "You don't belong here," he whispered, slur attached. Marcus kept his cool, scanning for an exit. Miguel, the pool attendant, was watching, moving closer. "Race me," Blake taunted. "Or, are you scared?" "I'm not racing. I just want to leave." Blake's grip tightened. Miguel arrived. "Everything okay?" Blake grinned. "Just talking." A manager barked at Miguel to leave. He hesitated, then backed off, eyes lingering on Marcus. Blake's smirk returned. The crowd thinned. Fewer witnesses now. Blake gave Tyler and Caleb a nod. They surrounded Marcus, herding him toward the deep end. "Time for a lesson," Blake said, shoving him. Marcus caught his balance, hands raised. "I don't want trouble." Zoe tried calling for help, but another girl snatched her phone. Inside the clubhouse, the adults toasted champagne. Connor Harrison's plan to leave the teens unsupervised had worked. Blake stepped closer. "You come here, act like you belong, make us look bad. People like you ruined this town. This time." The slur was loud. Intentional. Marcus focused, breathing steady. Assess. De-escalate. Blake read calm as fear and pushed harder. "Not so special now, huh?" "This isn't necessary," Marcus said quietly. "We can all walk away." Blake laughed. "Too late for that." Suddenly, Tyler grabbed one arm, Caleb the other. Marcus could have broken free, but not without hurting someone. He hesitated. Blake moved in and punched him in the gut. Amateur hit, but enough to knock the air out of him. Miguel came running, yelling for them to stop, but a group of teens blocked his path. Blake barked an order. Tyler and Caleb swung Marcus back, then forward toward the deep end of the pool. Had intended as an act of humiliation, had turned into something else entirely. A masterclass in control, discipline, and survival. The boys who'd dragged Marcus into the water, expecting dominance, had emerged, shocked, disoriented, and subdued, not by brute strength, but by a precision they couldn't comprehend. Blake leaned against the pool wall, coughing and gripping his ribs. Tyler sat frozen at the shallow end, nursing his shoulder. Caleb floated nearby, shaken and silent. Around them, their friend, so confident minutes earlier, now stared in stunned silence. And Marcus stood tall, soaked to the bone, chest heaving, but calm. Centered. Zoe returned from the admin office, her breath short from running. She held up her phone discreetly. showing Marcus a paused video feed from the club's security system time-stamped footage of the initial attack. She gave him a quiet nod. It had been captured. Everything. Connor Harrison didn't notice. He was too busy, posturing, too consumed by rage and embarrassment to realize the tide was shifting. "You'll never step foot in this town again," he spat. "I'll see to it myself." Marcus didn't respond. He didn't have to. The truth, cold and impartial, was already being retrieved from the hard drive in the security office. Miguel stepped forward then, no longer just the lifeguard. "I saw what happened," he said, raising his voice. "That kid Marcus, he didn't start it. They jumped him, tried to drown him." A few adults began to murmur. Zoe joined him. "There's footage," she added, louder. "Security cameras." "Got it." One of the officers paused, glancing between Marcus and the suddenly quiet crowd of teens. "Where's the feed?" he asked. "In the security office," Zoe answered. She backed it up. Connor turned sharply. "That footage is club property." "No, sir," Miguel countered, jaw tight. "That footage belongs to the truth." For the first time, Connor Harrison had no reply. The officers exchanged looks. One removed the cuffs from Marcus without a word. Another radioed for tech support to secure the video. Marcus rolled his wrists, but his expression never changed, calm, collected, just like his father had taught him. Within the hour, the footage was reviewed. Everything became clear: the assault, the attempted drowning, Marcus's measured defense. One officer shook his head, muttering, "Kid's a damn professional." Connor's face had gone pale. Blake protested, his voice rising, but it was hollow now. The lie had been pierced, and no one was buying the performance anymore. Zoe stood beside Marcus, unwavering. "They were going to let you drown," she said softly. "But you didn't let them. You turned the whole thing around." Marcus looked out over the pool, the water now still. "I didn't want to fight," he said, "but I was ready." By nightfall, the news had spread beyond Oak Ridge. Local media ran the story first as a headline about an altercation at the country club. But as video leaked, the narrative shifted. A viral clip of Marcus's calm arrest, set against the truth revealed by the footage, ignited outrage and conversation nationwide. For the first time, the world saw not just another false accusation, but what black excellence looked like under pressure. Not just survival, but discipline. Not just injustice, but what it meant to rise above it. Marcus Johnson hadn't just defended himself. He had dismantled the lie, and the world was watching. What was meant to assert control had instead exposed deep vulnerability. The shaken expressions on Blake and his friends revealed not only physical pain, but the disorientation of having their perceived dominance undone. The growing commotion drew adults from the clubhouse, their laughter and champagne-fueled chatter vanishing as they saw the chaos by the pool. Connor Harrison was first to reach the scene, rushing to pull his gasping nephew from the water, all while glaring daggers at Marcus. "What happened? Who's responsible?" he barked. Blake, ever the manipulator, wasted no time. "We were just swimming," and he snapped. "Came at us for no reason." Tyler and Caleb, clutching their bruises, quickly chimed in. "He tried to drown Blake," Caleb added dramatically, raising his voice for maximum effect. The adults who had gathered now stared at Marcus with suspicion, their minds already made up. Every unconscious bias clicked into place. Miguel stepped forward, voice firm. "That's not true. I saw them gang up on him. He was defending himself." But the lifeguard's protest was buried under a wave of voices, all echoing Blake's version of events. Zoe tried to speak up, but another girl yanked her back, hissing something into her ear that made her shrink into silence. Connor Harrison stepped toward Marcus with slow, deliberate menace. His face was red, his voice low and dangerous. "You show up to my club, attack my nephew and his guests, and think you'll walk away from this." He leaned in closer. "Do you know who?" I am in this town. Before Marcus could answer, the club manager made an announcement that cut through the crowd like a blade. Police are en route. The words landed heavy. Marcus heard them as something else. A warning. He had been taught what to do in moments like this. The talk his parents gave him at 12 hadn't been about birds, and Beset had been about survival. Keep your hands visible. Don't argue. Comply. Stay alive. As the sirens neared, Marcus took control of his breathing, clearing his mind. 2 patrol cars screeched to a stop outside the club gates. Officers exited, with hands already resting on their sidearms. Connor Harrison intercepted them, speaking like a man used to being obeyed. Though Marcus couldn't hear the words, the glances that followed said enough. The officer's eyes locked, on him, hard and unforgiving. One strode over, hand on his holster. Turn around, hands behind your back. Marcus didn't resist. He didn't speak. The cuffs clicked tight around his wrists. Marcus Johnson, you're being detained for suspected assault. You have the right to remain silent. As the officer read his Miranda rights, Marcus caught a glimpse of Zoe slipping away toward the club offices. She looked back, one's eyes filled with quiet urgency, and disappeared inside. She remembered the cameras, and so did he. As he was led toward the parking lot, past a smug Blake wrapped in a towel, past teens whispering and gawking, Marcus didn't flinch. He saw the confidence in their eyes, their certainty that the story had already been written and signed. But they didn't know what was coming. Parents whispered. Teenagers filmed. Some looked gleeful, others merely uncomfortable. Only Miguel and a few others seemed unsure. Then, Marcus saw Zoe reappear. She walked quickly, holding something in her hand. When she saw him, she gave a discreet nod, even in chains. Marcus felt the tide beginning to shift. The world wasn't designed to believe boys like him. The system had been built on presumption, not truth. But water always finds a way forward, around barriers, shaping rock, carving paths no one expected. As the cruiser pulled away, Marcus watched the country club fade behind him. The officer driving looked confused by the faint smile on his face. But Marcus knew what they didn't. In the age of digital eyes, truth doesn't die quietly. It waits, and it watches. The juvenile detention center was a different universe entirely. Gone were the columns and chandeliers here. Gray cement, flickering fluorescent lights, and the constant clang of metal doors painted a picture of power and punishment. Marcus sat alone in an interview room, soaked and shivering. The chill of the air conditioner raised goosebumps on his skin. His repeated requests to call his parents were met with indifference. Processing, said the officer lazily. You'll get your call when it's time. Marcus knew that wasn't legal, but arguing would only feed the machine. Instead, he closed his eyes, breathing deeply. His father had taught him how to ground himself even in chaos. Meanwhile, across town, Diana and James Johnson were unraveling. The text Marcus had sent leaving early, not feeling right, was the last they'd heard. Every call since had gone to voicemail. It was only when James dialed the country club directly that they learned the truth. There was an incident, said the receptionist coolly. Your son is in police custody. He allegedly assaulted other teenagers. Diana's hands trembled. No, not again. Not our son. James was already at the door, mask of calm, masking the storm underneath. Call Patricia, he said. Patricia Washington, a longtime friend, and a civil rights attorney known statewide for dismantling cases just like this. At the detention center, bureaucracy bled into indifference. Diana's title meant nothing. James's medals didn't matter. To the intake desk, they were just 2 more anxious black parents. You'll have to wait, the officer said, not bothering to look up. He's being processed. Is he alone? Diana snapped. He's a minor. He can't be questioned without a guardian or legal counsel, the officer replied, finally glancing at her. Something in his expression shifted, maybe shame, maybe fear. I'll check, he muttered, disappearing behind a locked door. James gripped Diana's hand. They're stalling, trying to get him to say something, twist his words. Marcus knows better, Diana whispered, but even brilliance isn't armor in a place like this. Across Oak Ridge, news trucks began circling. A violent incident at an elite club, a prominent businessman's nephew. A birthday turned chaotic. The narrative was being shaped in real time, standing before a wall of microphones. Connor Harrison played the role to perfection, his outrage practiced, his tone calibrated. This was an unprovoked attack, he said gravely. My nephew and his friends were just celebrating. What happened today was senseless, savage, and behind every word, the unspoken message rang clear. This wasn't supposed to happen in our world, but hard evidence was irrefutable. Without the security footage, the prosecution could continue painting Marcus as the aggressor. The problem was, if the footage existed, someone had deliberately buried it or worse, tampered with it. Zoe Chin was still the key, but she had gone quiet. After days of no contact, Patricia received a short, encrypted message routed through an anonymous email. Footage exists. They're hiding it in the club's off-site server. I'm trying to get it. Please, don't give up. See Patricia. Immediately forwarded it to her tech consultant. Get me anything you can. IP logs, server trails, backups. I want this club's digital history in front of me by Friday. Meanwhile, the Johnson family found themselves under siege. News vans staked out their home. Hate mail arrived in batches, and Marcus's school life shattered overnight. His online classes were interrupted by racist trolls, while Oak Ridge High's administration issued a suspension notice, claiming it was pending further disciplinary review. Review of what? Diana snapped. A lie. They don't care, James replied quietly. They just want to remove the threat. But Marcus refused to collapse under the pressure. He spent hours at Patricia's office, reviewing strategy, reading legal briefs, studying witness testimony, training in the basement when the weight of injustice became too much to bear. Pain isn't weakness, his father reminded him. It's fuel. Then, a break. Miguel called Patricia in the middle of the night. I know someone who might have copied the footage. A club maintenance technician named Luis Ortega, who had been working a private side hustle backing up footage to protect himself from wrongful termination. Patricia arranged a meeting through encrypted lines and trusted intermediaries. Luis arrived 2 nights later, visibly shaken but resolute. I didn't mean to get involved, he said, placing a small external drive on the table. But I saw what happened, and I saved the files that night. Before they were wiped, the footage was there, all of it. From the moment Blake shoved Marcus into the pool, to the coordinated attempted drowning to Marcus's restrained, but effective defense. Every lie, every false claim, was now provably false. There was more. The audio from the clubhouse security mic caught Connor Harrison's post-incident command to the club manager. Say the cameras were down, we'll get this cleaned up. And then, the real bombshell, Zoe Chin, walking into the office, clearly distressed, asking to see the footage. The manager refusing. Connor arriving minutes later and instructing staff to remove her. Patricia sat back from the screen, eyes wide. We don't just have a defense, she murmured. We have a counterattack. She knew exactly how to use it. Monday morning, the preliminary hearing began, under the gray skies of a rare Oak Ridge storm. Inside the courtroom, Judge Eleanor Hargrove presided from the bench, expression unreadable, but reputation well known. Blake entered with a neck brace and dark sunglasses. His attorney, funded by Harrison's deep pockets, launched immediately into a narrative of an unprovoked martial arts attack. But Patricia didn't flinch. When the judge asked if the defense had any response, Patricia stood slowly and placed a flash drive on the evidence table. I do, Your Honor. This footage was recovered from the club's private off-site backup server. It provides full visual and audio context for the incident in question. The prosecutor objected. Hargrove overruled him. We'll view the footage now. As the video played, the courtroom fell silent. There was no ambiguity. The truth unfolded, clearly, frame by frame. The assault, the attempted drowning, the restraint, the cover-up, the lies. Connor Harrison's face turned gray. Blake paled beneath his fake tan. By the time it ended, the room had shifted. Sympathy drained from Blake's side, like water from a cracked glass. Patricia let the silence linger, then spoke. This isn't just a case about self-defense, Your Honor. It's a case about abuse, of privilege, about institutions protecting aggressors and persecuting victims based on race, status, and narrative control. Marcus Johnson didn't just defend himself, he survived a premeditated assault and an organized cover-up. Outside, reporters scrambled to rewrite their headlines. Judge Hargrove, after a long pause, spoke slowly. The court finds insufficient evidence to pursue these charges. All counts are dismissed, effective immediately. Mr. Johnson, you are free to go. Relief swept through the courtroom, but Patricia wasn't done. She turned to the press corps and announced a civil lawsuit against Oak Ridge Country Club, Connor Harrison, and Blake Wilson for assault, defamation, and attempted obstruction of justice. And in that moment, the story transformed. Marcus Johnson was no longer the suspect. He was the survivor, the fighter, the symbol, and the war for truth had just begun. But it could easily be dismissed as biased or anecdotal. What they needed was concrete, physical evidence. A forensic specialist reviewed images of the injuries sustained by Blake and his friends, determining that the wound patterns clearly aligned with defensive techniques, not offensive aggression. The report emphasized that the marks were consistent with non-lethal martial arts methods specifically designed to disable an attacker without inflicting lasting harm. Patricia's team also uncovered troubling records tied to the officers who arrested Marcus, particularly regarding their interactions with minority suspects. Internal Affairs had launched investigations in the past, but they had been closed unusually fast and without any formal action. Despite procedural inconsistencies, at the same time, Zoe Chin was fighting a quieter battle at home. Her parents, immigrants who had worked hard to secure a stable middle-class life, feared retaliation. The Harrisons can ruin us, her father warned. Your college apps, our status in the community, even my job could be at risk. But Zoe wasn't deterred. She secretly began recording hallway conversations at school, capturing Blake and his friends, openly discussing how they taught the black kid a lesson, and bragging about keeping their story straight. One recording caught Blake saying, "Uncle Connor already talked to the judge anyway, so it doesn't matter what really happened." Zoe knew what she had was critical. Meanwhile, Patricia scheduled a psychological evaluation for Marcus. The psychologist noted his remarkable discipline and moral center, describing no signs of violent predisposition. The report emphasized that Marcus showed a deep sense of responsibility regarding his martial arts training, strictly aligned with defensive intent. Then came the breakthrough. A military tech contact of James analyzed the country club's system and confirmed what Patricia suspected. Although the main server may have suffered a malfunction, the club's insurance-mandated backup system would still contain continuous recordings. The expert confirmed, the footage exists, they're simply hiding it. With this, Patricia filed an emergency motion, compelling the release of all video evidence, and a motion to dismiss charges. Based on multiple rights violations, she also submitted a formal request for Judge Hargrove's recusal, citing documented financial and personal ties to Connor Harrison. Faced with the growing mountain of evidence and increasing media scrutiny, the DA's office began to backpedal. Then, the pivotal moment arrived. James received a text, reading, "Check social media now." The Johnson family watched in stunned silence, as crystal clear poolside footage from multiple angles flooded across every major platform. The videos, showed the full truth: Blake's taunts, the coordinated attack, the attempted drowning, and Marcus' restrained yet effective defense. The audio was equally damning, capturing racial slurs and Blake's explicit threats. Overnight, the truth dominated headlines. Hashtags supporting Marcus surged. Public perception shifted. Reporters who once ran with sensationalized narratives now scrambled to update their stories. The next morning, news crews again crowded outside the Johnsons' home, but this time, they weren't there to vilify. They were there to document a national turning point. Patricia's phone lit up with messages from the DA, each one more conciliatory. Before they even reached the courthouse, they received confirmation. Judge Hargrove had recused herself, and the charges were being dropped. Marcus's calm and composed as ever, offered a quiet comment. "I told you the truth would come out." The full footage redefined the story. What many had rushed to label a violent outburst now stood clearly as a racially motivated attack, and a controlled, heroic act of self-preservation. National news outlets corrected their early reports. The story was no longer about a dangerous teen, but a young man whose calm, discipline, and integrity dismantled a powerful lie. Patricia held a press conference where she confirmed that charges were dropped and announced plans for civil litigation against the country club, Connor Harrison, and those who attempted to obstruct justice. Blake, Tyler, and Caleb faced school suspensions and potential criminal investigation. Their college recruiters began to withdraw offers. Connor Harrison's empire crumbled as leaked. Audio of him instructing the club manager to fake a camera outage surfaced, allegedly leaked by a former employee. His real estate firm's stock plummeted as partners distanced themselves. Meanwhile, the Oak Ridge Country Club faced lawsuits from both the Johnsons and former employees, citing racial discrimination and retaliatory firings. The Johnson family felt vindicated, but the aftermath wasn't without cost. Threats arrived alongside support. Diana took leave from the hospital after a patient refused her care. James shut down the dojo temporarily due to security concerns. Marcus's face was everywhere. His privacy disappeared overnight. "This is the price of visibility," Patricia noted during a strategy meeting. "Even when you win, challenging, power makes you a target. The question is, what do you do with the spotlight?" Marcus was now a national figure. Civil rights groups invited him to speak. Media requests poured in. Martial arts associations honored him for his restraint and integrity. Through it all, Marcus stayed grounded. "I didn't ask for this," he told his parents. "I just wanted to go to a party." Diana, breaking her usual calm, pulled him into a tight embrace. "We know, baby, we know." The community response exposed deep fractures. Many residents organized vigils and blocked hate groups. Others clung to conspiracy theories, insisting the footage was doctored. Zoe Chin's identity as the footage source emerged, and the backlash began. Her father lost a promotion. Friends distanced themselves, but new doors opened. An internship from a civil liberties organization, calls from elite universities. Her parents eventually moved from fear to pride. "You showed us what real courage looks like," her father told her. Marcus struggled with trauma despite his vindication. Nightmares of drowning returned. Crowds triggered anxiety. His father arranged therapy with a trauma specialist focused on youth of color. "Healing isn't a straight line," the therapist explained in their first session. "Justice helps, but healing takes its own path." The case was over, but the movement it sparked had only just begun. Marcus studied him carefully. Aiden Harrison, Connor's son, Blake's cousin, the same kid who had looked away as Marcus was led away in handcuffs. The same one who hadn't said a word during the chaos, but also hadn't contributed to the lies. "Depends," Marcus said evenly, not moving from his place by the mats. "You here for more damage, or something else?" Aiden looked up, guilt written plainly across his face. "Something else." There was a long silence. the distant hum of traffic, the quiet creak of the door as it slowly swung wider. Finally, Marcus nodded toward the bench near the wall. Talk, then. Aiden sat clearly unsure where to begin. I should have said something back then, he muttered. I saw it. Not everything, but enough to know Blake lied. I froze. My dad told me to keep quiet, let things blow over, said it wasn't our fight. Marcus crossed his arms, his expression unreadable. But it was your fight. You just didn't want to bleed. Aiden winced. Yeah, I know. That now. I've been watching what you've been doing beneath the surface. The new dojo, the speeches. I guess I just wanted to say I'm sorry, and that I respect you. For a long moment, Marcus didn't speak. Then he walked over and sat across from Aiden. I don't need your respect, he said calmly. I need your courage. What happened to me isn't over. It never really is. If you're serious about making it right, it's not enough to apologize. You've got to do something. Aiden nodded slowly. Tell me what to do. Marcus looked him in the eye. Start with the truth, publicly, about what you saw, about who your father really is. You don't get to benefit from silence anymore. Aiden swallowed hard, then nodded again, more firmly this time. Okay, I'll do it. As Marcus stood and offered a hand, Aiden took it. The handshake wasn't warm, but it was real. Later that evening, Marcus walked home under a deepening orange sky. The streets of Oakage were quiet, but for the first time in a long while. They didn't feel hostile. Progress wasn't perfect, and justice wasn't complete, but it was movement. And Marcus Johnson, once almost drowned, once nearly erased, still here, still standing, still rising. Can we talk? He asked. They sat across from each other on the dojo mats, the silence between them filled with 6 months of everything unspoken. I should have done something, Aiden finally said, at the pool. I knew what Blake was capable of. I saw what was happening, and I froze. I was a coward. Marcus studied him carefully. He looked for any sign of performance, but what he saw was real regret. Fear's powerful, Marcus replied quietly. Takes work to overcome it just like any other skill. Aiden nodded, blinking hard. My dad and I barely talk now. After the truth came out, I started asking questions about other things he's done. Stuff I always kind of knew deep down wasn't right, but I didn't want to face it. That's a tough place to be, Marcus said. Sometimes standing up to family is harder than standing up to your enemies. Their conversation didn't resolve everything, but it cracked open a door both of them had assumed was shut for good. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. Even more surprising was the appearance of Blake Wilson at the dojo a week later. Unlike Aiden, Blake arrived with the same swagger he'd always worn, only now it seemed a bit thinner, stretched over discomfort. My counselor thinks I should talk to you, he said, walking in without introduction. Part of this restorative justice thing, or whatever. Marcus met his gaze, reading the defensive posture, the averted eyes. And what do you think? He asked. Blake was caught off guard. He'd expected anger or bitterness, not a question. I think. Blake hesitated, voice quieter now. I don't know who I am anymore. Before, I was sure about everything. Now, nothing makes sense. Marcus saw the moment for what it was, an opening. Sometimes losing that certainty is how we find the truth, he said, repeating one of his father's old teachings. We've got a beginner's class on Tuesdays. If you're ready to learn not just martial arts, but who you are. Blake shrugged. I'll think about it. But the following Tuesday, he showed up. It was a start. The road ahead wouldn't be simple. But every long journey begins the same way, with a single honest step, on a warm summer afternoon. Nearly a year after the attack, Marcus stood once again at the edge of the Oakage public pool, the deep end, the site of his greatest trauma. With .com, practiced breath, He dove in, cutting through the water with power and grace. When he surfaced, he saw his parents watching proudly from the pool deck, surrounded by students from the dojo's youth program. The water that had once nearly killed him had become a symbol of his strength. Later that evening, local news aired a segment on his appointment to the County Civil Rights Commission's Youth Advisory Board. Marcus watched quietly, reflecting on the strange, painful path that had brought him here. The attack could have broken him. Instead, it became the catalyst for transformation, for justice, for healing, not just for him, but for the whole community. There's one technique more important than any physical move, Marcus told the reporter. It's learning to keep your center when the world around you is chaos. To respond with clarity instead of reacting from fear. To take harm and turn it into something good. As the camera zoomed out, Marcus stood surrounded by his students at the very pool where he'd once fought for his life. Where there had once been cruelty and silence, there was now community, discipline, and purpose. If you've followed Marcus's journey from victim to warrior, from accused to advocate, what moments stayed with you the most? Was it his calm in the face of violence, his parents' fierce support, or the moment the truth finally surfaced? Comment below with the part that moved you or challenged you. Have you ever seen injustice exposed in your own community? Have you ever witnessed someone rise above pain with purpose? If Marcus's story made you believe in the power of truth, resilience, and transformation, hit that like button and share this with someone who needs that reminder today. Subscribe for more powerful stories of people rising against overwhelming odds. And remember, the true measure of character isn't revealed in comfort, but in crisis. Marcus Johnson's journey shows us that courage, truth, and discipline have the power to shift even the most unjust systems, one ripple at a time. Let's all keep making waves beneath the surface.